first muscle that we want to talk about in the Janet system is the trapezius muscle. So when we look at the trapezius muscle itself, we see that the trapezius actually starts right here. We can see it right here in the base of the skull here. Kind of comes down along the shoulder, comes all along about 2/3 of the front part of the clavicle there, then comes all the way out to the shoulder tip, and then we kind of go down to the T12 area, which is on her right around there. So we have fibers that come off of the spine and go out to the shoulder like this, and it sort of looks like, to me, kind of a diamond pattern, if you will, and that kind of shapes out the trapezius. So one of the first trigger points that Janet talks about is a trigger point that is found sort of right up here in the sort of anterior upper fibers of the trapezius. This particular trigger point, when compressed or activated, will cause a referral zone that goes out into the skull, has kind of a concentrated area here and then sort of a less concentrated area sort of down through here on the head. And so we see trigger point compressed here causes pain anywhere along the skull here. Well, that particular trigger point actually corresponds on the other side to one of our meridians. That's this purple meridian here. This is called the San Jao meridian. The San Jao meridian, as you can see, would have, and actually that trigger point that is found on that side is San Jao 16 on here. We've already mapped it, labeled it. San Jao 16, or actually, if we follow the San Jao meridian, we see that it comes up over the ear and kind of generalizes into this area here. Now, if you remember from our other videos, or if not, go back and review them, that the meridian, or the line of the meridian, is just the center line of it. That the meridian itself is actually way thicker than that. It actually extends to the next meridian and then so on. So these two guys will meet in the middle here. So even though this is the center line, it's actually much thicker than this in terms of its functionality. And you can see how, boy, that sure looks like it goes right into that same area of the regularly mapped trigger point on here, San Jao 16, and trigger point here. Now the next trigger point that Janet maps out is one that's found just a little bit lower in the shoulder there. It's sort of on the top. It's really that peak, or really where that knot is, that almost all of us have, that we can find right here. That particular trigger point has a referral zone that is generalized into the neck here, and sort of covers more of this sort of posterior lateral area. Doesn't as much come up into the shoulder there. Now that trigger point on the shoulder corresponds to another meridian on the body, and that is the gallbladder meridian here. That trigger point on the other side is actually gallbladder 21, which is found right here on the top of the shoulder. If we follow the gallbladder meridian, we see that it does go right up into the skull, right up into this area right here. And so when activated, it can cause pain all along that line there. Gallbladder 21 and San Jao 16 right up here are two common trigger points for causing headache pain, both in the ram's head kind of headache pain or the banded kind of headache pain that we see right here. And sure enough, we see that the meridian sort of outlays or lies that out. Now, the next couple trigger points that Janet mentions or talks about in her book are the ones that correlate or are down here in the lower fibers of the back, or in the lower fibers of the trapezius. First one that we'll mention is down here on the inferior border of the scapula, and so this one is just right inside that inferior border of the scapula. The generalized referral zone for that one actually kind of comes all the way along the muscle itself. It sort of covers a lot of it. It has some spots that are out here, but it has the largest section of it is right along this midline here. If we can see that, right here on the corresponding side is the bladder meridian. This dark line here is the bladder meridian, and that one would probably be bladder 16 medially or bladder 45 if we're going a little bit more lateral. There's 2 points there again. What we're going to see is that the acupoints are more comprehensive. Trigger points are found in very specific areas often. Acupoints are labeling both the trigger points, but also other structures, anatomical structures such as nerve endings, nerve bundles, vascular bundles, and so on. So we're going to see more acupoints in an area that Janet labels out as trigger points, because trigger points are only a category of acupoint, if you will. So we see again a corresponding, the only difference is that we see sort of a connecting area out here of the referral area, and we would bore that out by looking at maybe one of the other channels or a corresponding channel. But the major referral zone for this one actually follows that bladder channel, which runs right up in there. The last trigger point that Janet lists as a trapezius trigger point is one that's found out here on the outer border of the fibers, sort of as those fibers sort of come into the shoulder here. The referral zone for that outer one is very local, right around here, but also has a referral zone that extends down the arm. So the outer trigger point actually comes down here and sort of refers onto the arm like this. Well, when we look again on our corresponding side, we see that that trigger point actually follows or lies on one of 2 meridians, either large intestine 15 here or San Jao 14 here, depending upon how the arm is positioned. And we see that really it's probably more along the line of the San Jao 14, because there is that line that goes down, but also large intestine also goes down sort of the lateral, sort of anterior portion. So if we're trying to find that trigger point in their shoulder and it's more on this side, it'll correspond here. If it's more here, it'll there. And same, there it is, right there on that same line there. So again, we see, remember that the Chinese meridians are a generalization. You know, a lot of times we're sort of picking it apart. Oh, is that exactly on the line or not? The Chinese meridian is a generalization. It's looking at the overall function. It generalizes the muscles and structures and whatnot underneath. In Western anatomy, we're being very specific. So we're saying in these fibers in this muscle, and it causes this referral zone. Well, if we look at those, we see there's definitely an overlap, and there's definitely a correlation. So stay tuned. We're going to move through the next series, or each one of these will be another muscle group. Thanks for joining us.